They had no idea I'd already planned for this. Their signatures meant far less than their greed would ever let them realize. My name is Sophia, and I should have seen it coming the moment my mother called with that fake sweet voice she reserves for delivering bad news. Sweetheart, we need you to come over tonight, family meeting. I'd spent the last 6 years turning our family's crumbling apartment building into something beautiful. 24 units that were falling apart when I started, now home to artists, young families, elderly folks who'd been priced out everywhere else. I'd scraped together every dollar, called in every favor, worked 16-hour days with my hands bleeding from drywall and splinters. The building wasn't just my project, it was my sanctuary. The place I'd rebuilt myself after my marriage to Ray nearly destroyed me. But sitting in my parents' pristine living room that Tuesday night, watching my father Hugh fidget with his coffee cup while my mother Evelyn smoothed her skirt for the 10th time, I knew something was very wrong. So, my sister Marley said, practically bouncing in her chair, Mom and Dad have some exciting news. The way she said exciting made my stomach drop. We found a buyer, Dad said, not meeting my eyes, for the building. I set down my tea carefully. What buyer? Someone who appreciates the property's potential, Mom said. Someone with vision and capital to really maximize. What buyer? I repeated. The front door opened and I heard footsteps in the hallway. Confident, familiar. My blood turned to ice. Ray walked into the living room like he owned it, which I was starting to realize he might. Hello, Sophia. That same smile that used to make me feel special before I learned it was the smile of a predator sizing up prey. You look well. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. 6 years of therapy, of rebuilding, of creating something beautiful from nothing, and here he was, in my parents' living room like he belonged there. Ray made us an offer we couldn't refuse, Dad said, still not looking at me. Cash, above market value, close in 2 weeks. You sold my building to him? The words came out steady, which surprised me. Inside, I was screaming. It's not your building, Marley said with obvious satisfaction. It's Mom and Dad's building. You just worked on it. Ray settled into the armchair across from me, completely at ease. I've been watching your progress, Sophia. Very impressive work. I think I can take it to the next level. Take it to what level? Luxury condos, high-end finishes, the kind of tenants who can actually afford market rate. He leaned forward slightly. Don't worry about your little community project. I'm sure they'll find somewhere else to go. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against my thighs. Those people are my tenants. They have leases, rights. Leases can be broken, Ray said softly. Rights can be negotiated. Mom cleared her throat. Sophia, honey, you have to understand. We're getting older. We need the security. And Ray's offering, how much? I asked. 2.8 million, Dad said quietly. I felt like I'd been punched. The building was worth maybe 2 million on a good day. Ray was paying 800,000 over market value just to hurt me. Well, I said, standing up. Congratulations. Marley's face fell. She'd been expecting tears, begging, maybe a breakdown. That's it? You're just going to let him what? It's done, right? I looked at my parents. You've already signed? This afternoon, Mom said, looking almost disappointed that I wasn't falling apart. Ray stood too, extending his hand. I hope we can work together on this transition, Sophia, for old time's sake. I looked at his hand, at his face, at my family watching like this was entertainment. Of course, I said, shaking his hand briefly. I want what's best for the building. His grip lingered a moment too long. I knew you'd be reasonable. I walked to the door, my family trailing behind me like they weren't sure the show was over. Sophia, Mom called as I reached for my coat. You're not upset? I turned back to look at them. Ray lounging in Dad's chair like he'd already moved in. Marley pouting because I hadn't given her the meltdown she wanted. My parents looking guilty but greedy. Why would I be upset? I said. You made your choice. I drove home in silence, my hands steady on the wheel. They thought they'd destroyed me. They thought I was the same broken woman who'd fled from Ray 6 years ago with nothing but a suitcase and a restraint order. They had no idea what I'd built into that building, what protections I'd woven into every lease, every permit, every utility contract, what legal landmines I'd buried in the foundation along with the new plumbing. They'd signed their names on a contract, but I held all the keys that mattered, and I was about to teach them the difference. The next morning, I was replacing a broken faucet in 3B when Paxton found me. Heard about the sale? He said, leaning against the doorframe. Paxton had been the building's handyman for 8 years, back when it was a dump and now that it was home to 24 families. You okay? Fine, I said, tightening the connection. Just business. Business. He snorted. That why you're fixing Mrs. Rodriguez's sink at 7 a.m.? I stood up, wiping my hands on my jeans. Can't sleep. Sophia. His voice was gentle. I know who bought the building. I met his eyes. Paxton had been here during the worst of it. When I'd show up with bruises, I couldn't explain and jump every time my phone rang. He'd never asked questions, just quietly changed the locks on my apartment and started walking me to my car after dark. He can't hurt me anymore, I said. Can't he? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Text from Ray. Looking forward to our partnership. Coffee tomorrow to discuss transition plans. I showed Paxton the screen. He cursed under his breath. Don't meet him alone. I'm not afraid of him. I know. That's what worries me. I was heading back to my apartment when I ran into Clara from 2A. She was coming back from her morning walk, her gray hair pulled back in its usual neat bun. Morning, dear. Beautiful day, isn't it? Sure is. I paused. Clara, can I ask you something? Hypothetically, if someone wanted to force you out of your apartment, what would you do? Her sharp eyes studied my face. Hypothetically, I'd check my lease very carefully. Make sure I knew exactly what rights I had. She tilted her head. Why do you ask? Just curious. She didn't look convinced. Well, hypothetically, I'd also make sure I had copies of everything. Receipts, communications, witness statements, paper trail, you know. Good advice. And Sophia? She touched my arm lightly. Hypothetically, I'd remember that I'm not alone. This building, these people, we're family. Real family looks out for each other. I spent the rest of the morning in my apartment pulling out files I hadn't looked at in years. The real estate attorney I'd worked with when I first started renovating had been thorough. Maybe too thorough, some might say. Every lease in the building had been personally negotiated by me. Every tenant had signed agreements that gave them unusual protections, rent stabilization, right of first refusal if the building sold, mandatory 60-day notice for any changes to building operations. But that wasn't the best part. The best part was buried in the utility contracts. When I'd upgraded the building's electrical and plumbing systems, I'd made sure the service agreements were in my name, not my parents', mine. The gas, electric, water, internet, all of it flowed through accounts I controlled. And the permits. God, the permits. Every renovation, every upgrade, every change had required city approval, approvals that were tied to specific maintenance requirements, tenant protections, and operational standards. Standards that would be very expensive to change. My phone rang. Mom. Sophia, honey, Ray mentioned you haven't responded to his text about coffee. I've been busy. He's trying to be nice. The least I could do is what, Mom? Roll over and play dead while he destroys everything I built? Don't be dramatic. He's not destroying anything. He's improving it. By kicking out families who've lived here for years? By making it profitable. Sophia, you're 34 years old. You can't keep playing house with this building forever. Maybe it's time to think about your future. I hung up. An hour later, Marley called. Seriously? You hung up on Mom? I was busy. Doing what? Sulking? Working. Right. Well, just so you know, Ray's been asking about you. wondering if you're seeing anyone." Her voice turned sly. "I told him you're still single, still living alone in that sad little apartment. Thanks for the update. Maybe this is the universe giving you a second chance, Sophia. Ray's successful now, really successful. And he obviously still cares about you, or he wouldn't have bought the building. He bought the building to hurt me, or maybe he bought it to win you back. Did you ever think of that?" I almost laughed. "Marley, do you remember why Ray and I got divorced? You two had problems. All couples have problems. He put me in the hospital." Silence. "That was a long time ago," she said finally. "People change." "Some people do. Ray isn't one of them." "God, you're so bitter. No wonder you're still alone." She hung up before I could respond. That evening, I was checking the mail when I found an envelope with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a message typed in block letters. "He's planning to evict everyone within 30 days. Thought you should know. A friend." I stared at the paper, my hands shaking slightly. 30 days. He wasn't even going to pretend to follow proper procedures. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. "Clara, it's Sophia. Can you come down to my apartment? I need to talk to you about something important." "Dante, are you free tonight? I need to discuss your lease with you." "Paxton, can you knock on doors? Get everyone together. Emergency building meeting." By 9 p.m., my living room was packed. 23 tenants, plus Paxton, families with kids, elderly couples, young professionals, artists, my people. "I have some news," I said, "and I need you all to listen very carefully." "The building has been sold," I said, watching 23 faces go pale, "to my ex-husband." The room erupted. Mrs. Rodriguez started crying. Dante jumped up from his chair. Young Marcus, who'd just moved in last month, looked like he might throw up. "What does that mean for us?" Clara asked, her voice cutting through the chaos. "It means he wants you gone, all of you, within 30 days. "He can't do that," said Janet from 4C. "We have leases. Leases can be broken if the new owner has cause," Paxton said grimly, "or if he's willing to pay the penalties." "Which he is," I said. "He's planning to gut this place and turn it into luxury condos." "So we're screwed," Dante said, slumping back into his chair. "Great, just great." "No," I said quietly. "You're not screwed." "Because I planned for this?" The room went silent. "What do you mean?" Clara asked. I pulled out a stack of papers. "When I negotiated your leases, I included some unusual clauses, protections you probably didn't notice buried in the legal language." "What kind of protections?" Mrs. Rodriguez asked, wiping her eyes. "Rent stabilization, right of first refusal, mandatory 60-day notice for any building changes, and something called an iron ring clause." "Iron ring?" Dante frowned. "What's that?" "It means any new owner has to honor existing lease terms for a minimum of 2 years, no exceptions, no buyouts without tenant consent, and any attempt to circumvent these protections triggers automatic legal review and potential damages." The room was dead quiet. "You're saying we can stay?" Marcus asked. "I'm saying he can't force you out, not legally." "But he'll try," Paxton said. "Oh, he'll definitely try, which is why I need you all to document everything. Every conversation, every interaction, every threat. Keep records. And if he or anyone working for him tries to intimidate you, call me immediately." Clara leaned forward. "Sophia, what aren't you telling us?" I looked around the room at these people who'd become my family. "The utility contracts are in my name, all of them. Gas, electric, water, internet. He can own the building, but he can't control the services without my permission." "Holy shit," Dante breathed. "Language," Mrs. Rodriguez scolded automatically, but she was smiling. "There's more. The permits for all the renovations are tied to specific tenant protections and building standards. If he wants to change anything, and I mean anything, he has to go through the city. and the city will require him to maintain current tenant agreements. You built a fortress, Clara said, sounding impressed. I built a home, and I protected it. The meeting broke up around 11, people filing out with copies of their lease protections and my phone number. Clara lingered. How long have you been planning this? She asked. Since the day I signed the first lease. You knew this might happen? I knew my family would eventually choose money over me. I just didn't know it would be Ray holding the checkbook. She squeezed my hand. You're stronger than you know, dear. The next morning, I was having coffee when I saw Ray's BMW pull up outside. He climbed out wearing an expensive suit and that same predatory smile. My phone rang. Sophia? It's Paxton. Your ex is here. He's got some guy with him. Contractor, maybe. I see him. Don't engage. Just watch. I grabbed my keys and headed downstairs, arriving just as Ray was trying to sweet-talk Mrs. Rodriguez in the lobby. Understand this is difficult, but I'm prepared to offer you a very generous relocation package. Is there a problem here? I asked. Ray turned, his smile widening. Sophia, perfect timing. I was just explaining to Mrs. Rodriguez about the exciting changes coming to the building. What changes? Upgrades, improvements, the kind of renovations that require temporary relocation of current tenants. Temporary? Well, some tenants might find the new rent structure challenging. Mrs. Rodriguez looked confused. But my lease says, leases can be complicated, Ray said smoothly. That's why I brought my attorney. He gestured to the thin man beside him. Marcus here specializes in tenant relocations. Actually, I said, I think Mrs. Rodriguez should talk to her own attorney before making any decisions. Mrs. Rodriguez, do you remember what we discussed about your lease protections? Her face cleared. Oh yes, the iron ring. Ray's smile faltered slightly. Iron ring? It's a legal term, I said innocently. Mrs. Rodriguez, why don't you go call that tenant rights lawyer I gave you the number for? She nodded and hurried toward the elevator. Ray watched her go, then turned back to me. Clever, but you can't protect all of them. Watch me. His attorney cleared his throat. Mr. Blake, perhaps we should review the lease agreements before— I've reviewed them, Ray snapped. Standard boilerplate. Actually, I said, they're not. Would you like copies? I have extras. I handed him a stack of papers. Ray's attorney started reading, his face growing paler with each page. Sir, the attorney said quietly, we need to talk, privately. Ray's jaw tightened. Fine. Sophia will continue this conversation later. Looking forward to it. They left, Ray's attorney talking rapidly in his ear. Through the lobby window, I watched them argue beside the BMW. My phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. Nice work, but he's not giving up. Be careful. I stared at the message, the same person who'd warned me about the 30-day eviction plan. Another text. Check your social media. Your sister's been busy. I opened Instagram. Marley had posted a photo of herself at some fancy restaurant, champagne glass raised. The caption read, Celebrating new beginnings. Some people cling to the past, but smart money moves forward. New chapter. You upgrade your life. Ian, sorry, not sorry. The comments were brutal. Friends and family members I hadn't spoken to in years, all weighing in on my situation, how I was holding back progress, how I needed to let go and move on, how I was just bitter because Ray had moved on and I hadn't. My phone rang. Ray. Cute stunt with the lawyer, he said, but this isn't over. I know. You think you're so smart, don't you? Building your little legal maze. But I've got time and money, Sophia. And you've got what? A bunch of broke tenants and a handyman? I've got something you'll never understand. What's that? People who actually care about me. He laughed. We'll see how much they care when I start making their lives difficult. There are ways around every contract, Sophia, and I know all of them. The line went dead. I looked around the lobby, at the plants Clara had helped me choose, the artwork from local tenants, the community board covered with photos and announcements. This wasn't just a building, it was home, and I'd burn it down before I let him destroy it. Ray's first move came 3 days later. Paxton called me at 6 a.m. "They're here with a demolition crew," he said, trying to gut 1A. I threw on clothes and ran downstairs. Sure enough, Ray stood in the hallway with 4 workers carrying sledgehammers and crowbars. "Morning, Sophia," Ray said cheerfully, "just making some improvements. You can't demolish occupied units. 1A's been vacant for 2 weeks. No, it hasn't. Mr. Peterson moved out last month, but I haven't released the unit yet. It's still under lease protection." Ray's foreman, a burly guy with paint-stained coveralls, looked confused. "Boss, she's right. City says we need permits for any structural changes." "I have permits," Ray snapped. "For what exactly?" I asked. He pulled out a folder. "Cosmetic renovations, paint, fixtures, flooring." I took the papers and scanned them. "These permits are for cosmetic work only. No structural changes, no plumbing modifications, no electrical work." So your crew has demolition equipment, that's structural work." The foreman shifted uncomfortably. "Ma'am's got a point. We start swinging hammers without proper permits. City shuts us down." Ray's face was turning red. "Fine, we'll start with paint." "Can't do that either," I said. "Building regulations require 72-hour notice to tenants before any work that involves fumes or noise." "What tenants? The unit's empty. Mrs. Rodriguez lives next door. Mr. and Mrs. Kim are directly above. Paint fumes affect adjacent units." The foreman was already packing up his tools. "Boss, we need to come back when you get this sorted out." "Wait. Sorry, man, I'm not risking my license over a paint job." After they left, Ray cornered me in the lobby. "You think you're clever, don't you?" "I think I know the building codes." "This is just the beginning, Sophia. I'll find a way around every single one of your little tricks." "Good luck with that." He stormed out, nearly colliding with Clara, who was coming back from the grocery store. "Trouble in paradise?" she asked, watching his BMW screech away. "He's testing boundaries." "And finding them well defended, I see." She smiled. "Coffee? I made too much." In Clara's apartment, she poured coffee from a pot that could have caffeinated half the building. "So," she said, settling into her armchair, "what's the real story with you and him?" I'd never told anyone the full truth, not even Paxton. We were married for 2 years. He was controlling. It got worse over time. Controlling how? He monitored my phone calls, made me quit my job, isolated me from friends. I paused. The last 6 months, he started hitting me. Clara's cup rattled against her saucer. "Oh, honey." The final time, I ended up in the ER. Broken ribs, concussion. That's when I finally left. And now he's back. Now he's back and he's rich and he thinks he can buy his way into controlling my life again. "Over my dead body," Clara said fiercely. My phone buzzed. Text from Mom. "Ray says you're being unreasonable about building access. Can't you just cooperate?" I showed Clara the message. "Your mother sent that? My whole family thinks I'm the problem, that I should just let him do whatever he wants because he's paying them money. What are you going to do?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Sophia Fox?" "Yes?" "This is Phoebe Kelly from the City Herald. I understand there's been some controversy around a recent building sale in your neighborhood." I looked at Clara, who was listening intently. "What kind of controversy?" "I've received some interesting documents about tenant rights violations and permit irregularities. Would you be available for an interview?" My heart started racing. What documents? Copies of lease agreements, city permits, and some very detailed records of attempted illegal renovations. Someone wanted me to know about this story. My mysterious anonymous friend was making moves. "I'd be happy to talk," I said. "Excellent. How about tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. at the coffee shop on 5th Street? After I hung up, Clara was grinning. A reporter? Someone's been feeding her information. Someone who knows what they're doing. The next morning, Phoebe turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with a recorder and a thick notebook. She'd done her homework. So you're the tenant advocate who's been protecting residents from illegal evictions? I'm the person who made sure everyone's rights were protected when I negotiated their leases. And the new owner is your ex-husband? Yes. That must be complicated. It's straightforward. He wants to maximize profits. I want to protect people's homes. She flipped through her notes. I have documentation of attempted unpermitted demolition, harassment of elderly tenants, and what appears to be a pattern of intimidation tactics. Where did you get that? A source who prefers to remain anonymous, but they've provided very detailed records. She looked up, including some interesting financial information about the sale itself. What kind of financial information? The purchase price was significantly above market value, almost like the buyer was paying extra for something beyond the property itself. I kept my expression neutral. I wouldn't know about that. Your ex-husband's business partners are also interesting. Several have been investigated for predatory real estate practices in other cities. This was news to me. Really? Oh yes, there's quite a pattern. Buy buildings in gentrifying neighborhoods, force out long-term tenants, flip to luxury condos. Very profitable if you don't mind destroying communities. My phone buzzed. Text from Ray. Saw the reporter leaving the coffee shop. Hope you didn't say anything you'll regret. I showed Phoebe the message. He's monitoring your movements? Apparently. She made a note. That's harassment. You should document everything. I am. Good. Because this story is bigger than one building, Sophia. This is about a pattern of abuse, both personal and financial, and I think people need to know about it. That afternoon, my phone started ringing. First, Mom. Sophia, what did you tell that reporter? The truth. Ray is furious. He says you're trying to sabotage the sale. The sale already happened, Mom. I'm just protecting the tenants. He's threatening to sue us for breach of contract if you keep interfering. Let him try. Then Dad called. Sophia, please, the money from this sale, we need it for retirement. If Ray backs out, he's not backing out, Dad. He's just learning that buying a building doesn't mean he can do whatever he wants with it. Can't you just compromise? Like you compromised with me when you sold to him behind my back? Silence. Finally, Marley called. You vindictive bitch, she said without preamble. Ray told me what you're doing. Which is what, exactly? Sabotaging his business, turning tenants against him, talking to reporters. I'm protecting people's homes. You're being petty and jealous because he's successful and you're still living in that sad little apartment. Marley, he could have had anyone, Sophia. Anyone. And he chose you. Twice. But you're so damaged and bitter that you can't see. I hung up. An hour later, I got another anonymous text. Check your email. You're going to want to see this. In my inbox was a forwarded email chain between Ray and his business partners. The subject line read, Tenant Removal Timeline, Riverside Building. I opened it and started reading. By the third email, my hands were shaking. The emails were worse than I'd imagined. Sophia will break eventually. She always does. Just need to apply the right pressure. What about the old lady in 2A? She looks frail. Might be easier to convince her the building isn't safe. Cut the heat for a few days. Winter's coming. Amazing how quickly people become reasonable when they're cold. I printed everything in cold Paxton. You need to see this, I said when he arrived at my apartment. He read in silence, his jaw getting tighter with each page. Jesus Christ, Sophia. He's planning to freeze people out. Literally. It gets worse. I showed him the final email. He's hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on the tenants, looking for immigration issues, unpaid debts, anything he can use as leverage. That's illegal. Only if we can prove it. Paxton stood up, pacing to the window. We have to warn everyone. We will, but first, I need to make a call. I dialed Phoebe's number. I have more information for you, I said. A lot more. What kind of information? The kind that shows a pattern of tenant harassment and illegal intimidation tactics. Can you prove it? I have emails. I'll be right over. While we waited for Phoebe, Dad called. Sophia, Ray's lawyer contacted us. They're saying you're interfering with their legal right to manage the property. Dad, he's planning to cut off heat to force people out. That's illegal. That's not what he told us. He said you're spreading lies to hurt his reputation. I'm spreading the truth. There's a difference. Honey, please, can't you just let this go? Find somewhere else to live? Ray said he'd help you with a down payment on your own place. He wants to buy me off? He wants to help you move on. By destroying the community I built? By giving you a fresh start? I hung up and immediately called Clara. Emergency meeting, I said. My apartment. 1 hour. Tell everyone. By 7 p.m., my living room was packed again. This time the mood was different. Angrier. He wants to cut our heat? Mrs. Rodriguez asked, clutching her sweater tighter. That's what the emails say. Dante was reading over the printouts. This is sick. He's talking about us like we're cockroaches to be exterminated. What do we do? Asked Janet. We fight back, Clara said firmly. But smart. Legal. I've already contacted the reporter, I said. She's going to run the story tomorrow. But we need to be prepared for retaliation. What kind of retaliation? Marcus asked. Before I could answer, the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a few seconds later, casting eerie shadows around the room. Through the window, I could see the streetlights were still on. Just our building was dark. Son of a bitch, Paxton muttered, pulling out his phone's flashlight. I'll check the electrical panel. Wait, I said. Everyone stay here. Don't go to your apartments alone. My phone rang. Ray. Having some electrical problems? He asked cheerfully. What did you do? Me? Nothing. But old buildings have such unreliable wiring. Dangerous, really. Someone could get hurt. Turn the power back on. I'm afraid that's not my department. You'd have to call the utility company, but they're probably closed for the night. Ray. Sweet dreams, Sophia. The line went dead. Paxton, I called. Don't touch anything in the electrical room. Why not? Because he wants us to. This is a setup. I called the utility company's emergency line. After 20 minutes on hold, I finally got through to a technician. Ma'am, our records show the power was shut off at the customer's request. Whose request? The account holder, a Mr. Blake. He doesn't have the authority to shut off power to a multi-unit building. According to our records, he's the property owner and requested service disconnection pending electrical upgrades. That's illegal. You can't shut off power to occupied residential units without proper notice and city approval. Ma'am, if you'd like to file a complaint, I want the power restored immediately. I'll need to speak with the account holder. The account holder is not the legal representative for the tenants. This is harassment. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to contact customer service during business hours. I hung up and called Phoebe. The story just got bigger, I said. An hour later, she arrived with a photographer. The emergency lighting made everything look dramatic and ominous. This is happening right now? She asked, taking notes as I explained. Right now, 23 families sitting in the dark because my ex-husband wants to force them out. She interviewed several tenants, their faces lit by phone flashlights. Mrs. Rodriguez talked about her heart medication that needed refrigeration. The young couple in 3C worried about their baby's formula spoiling. This is a powerful story, Phoebe said. But I need to ask, are you sure you want to go this route? Once this runs, there's no going back. Your ex-husband will know you're the source. He already knows. And your family? They made their choice. At midnight, Paxton managed to rig up a generator to power the emergency systems and some basic lighting. We'd survived the night, but barely. I was walking Clara back to her apartment when she stopped me in the hallway. Sophia, there's something I need to tell you. What? I know who's been sending you those anonymous messages. I stared at her. You? Not me. But I know who. She glanced around, then lowered her voice. It's someone inside Ray's organization. Someone who's been documenting everything. Who? I can't say. But they want to meet with you tomorrow night. They have more information. Much more. What kind of information? The kind that could end this permanently. My phone buzzed. Another anonymous text. Tomorrow night. Parking garage at 5th and Main. Level 3. Come alone. Bring the reporter if you trust her. I showed Clara the message. Are you going? She asked. Do I have a choice? There's always a choice, dear. But sometimes the right choice is the dangerous one. Back in my apartment, I sat in the dim light of Paxton's emergency setup and stared at the emails spread across my coffee table. Ray thought he was playing chess, moving pieces around the board to corner me. But he'd made one critical mistake. He'd forgotten that I'd been planning for this moment for 6 years. And unlike him, I wasn't playing alone. My phone rang. Mom. Sophia, Ray says the power outage was an accident, a miscommunication with the utility company. It wasn't an accident. He's offering to put everyone up in hotels until it's fixed. At what cost? No cost. He just wants to help. Mom, he cut the power on purpose, to force people out. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. Sophia, honey, I think you need to consider that maybe you're not seeing this clearly. Maybe your history with Ray is making you paranoid. I looked around my dark apartment at the emergency lights casting shadows on the walls. Maybe, I said, or maybe you're not seeing it clearly because he's paying you $2.8 million. Silence. That's not fair, she said finally. Neither is selling my home to the man who put me in the hospital. I hung up and turned off my phone. Tomorrow night, I'd learn just how deep Ray's corruption went. And then I'd decide how far I was willing to go to stop him. The parking garage at 5th and Main was nearly empty at 9 p.m. I found level 3 and parked near the stairwell, leaving the engine running. Phoebe sat in the passenger seat, her recorder ready. You sure about this? She asked. No, but I'm doing it anyway. A figure emerged from behind a concrete pillar, medium height, dark coat, face hidden by shadows. As they got closer, I realized it was a woman. She tapped on my window. I rolled it down. You're Sophia? Yes, I'm Amy. I work for Ray's investment firm. She glanced nervously around the garage. I've been documenting everything for months. Why? Because what he's doing is illegal, and I'm tired of being part of it. She handed me a thick manila envelope. Financial records, email chains, recorded phone calls, everything you need to prove he's running a criminal enterprise. Phoebe leaned forward. What kind of criminal enterprise? Real estate fraud, tax evasion, tenant harassment, bribery of city officials. Amy's voice was shaking. He's done this in 4 other cities. Buys buildings, forces out tenants through illegal means, flips them for massive profits. Why come forward now? I asked. Because of what he said about you in yesterday's meeting. My stomach dropped. What did he say? He said you were a problem that needed to be permanently solved, that he'd handled you before and he could handle you again. Phoebe and I exchanged glances. Handled me how? He showed us photos from when you were married. Hospital photos. Amy's voice was barely a whisper. He was bragging about putting you in your place. I felt sick. There's more, Amy continued. He's planning something for tomorrow night. Some kind of accident at the building. A gas leak, maybe. Or an electrical fire. something that would force everyone out and give him grounds to condemn the property. Jesus, Phoebe breathed. I have recordings of the planning meetings. It's all in there. Amy gestured to the envelope. But you need to move fast. Once he realizes I'm gone... A car door slammed somewhere in the garage. Amy's head snapped up. I have to go. Be careful, Sophia. He's more dangerous than you remember. She disappeared back into the shadows. Phoebe and I drove back to the building in silence, both of us processing what we'd just heard. This is huge, Phoebe finally said. Federal charge is huge. Will you run the story? Tomorrow morning. Front page. In my apartment, we spread Amy's documents across my kitchen table. Financial records showing millions in fraudulent transactions, recorded conversations detailing plans to bribe city inspectors, email chains discussing problem tenants and how to eliminate them, and photos, hospital photos of me from 6 years ago that I'd never seen before. Ray had kept them like trophies. Son of a bitch, I whispered. Phoebe was reading through a transcript of recorded phone calls. Sophia, listen to this. It's Ray talking to someone about your parents. She read aloud. The old man's desperate for money. Gambling debts. The wife doesn't know. They'll sign anything I put in front of them. Gambling debts? There's more. The sister's useful too. Jealous as hell. Feed her a few compliments and she'll tell me anything I want to know about Sophia's plans. I sat down hard in my chair. Marley's been spying on me. It gets worse. Once I control the building, Sophia becomes a trespasser. One call to the right people and she disappears for good. My hands were shaking. He's planning to have me arrested. Or worse. Phoebe looked up from the transcript. Sophia, you need to call the police. With what? Illegally obtained recordings? With evidence of planned arson and threats against your life. Before I could respond, someone pounded on my door. Heavy, aggressive knocks. Sophia, open up! Ray's voice. Phoebe grabbed her phone. I'm calling 911. Wait. I moved to the door but didn't open it. What do you want, Ray? We need to talk, now. We have nothing to talk about. Open the fucking door, Sophia, or I'll break it down. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. Tell them about your little meeting tonight. Tell them about the stolen documents. My blood went cold. He knew about Amy. I don't know what you're talking about. Parking garage, level 3. Ring any bells? Phoebe was whispering into her phone, giving the dispatcher our address. You're trespassing, Ray. Leave now, or I'll have you arrested. You think you're so smart, don't you? Building your little legal fortress, but you forgot something, Sophia. What's that? I know where you sleep. The pounding stopped. I heard footsteps moving away from the door, but they didn't go toward the elevator. They went toward the stairwell. He's not leaving, I whispered to Phoebe. He's going to another floor. My phone rang. Clara. Sophia, there's a man trying to break into the utility room. Paxton's confronting him. Call 911, now. Already did. I could hear shouting through the phone. Paxton's voice, then Ray's, then a crash. Clara, get everyone out of the building. Fire alarm, pull it now. The fire alarm started blaring. Through my window, I could see tenants streaming out of the building in their pajamas and robes. Sophia, Phoebe said, we need to go, now. We grabbed the documents and ran for the stairs. On the second floor, I smelled gas. Oh God, I breathed. In the lobby, Paxton was on the ground, blood streaming from his nose. Ray was nowhere to be seen. He hit the gas line, Paxton gasped. In the utility room, whole building's going to blow. Police sirens were getting closer. Where is he? I asked. Gone. Back exit. I helped Paxton to his feet and we stumbled outside. The street was chaos. Fire trucks arriving, police cars, tenants huddled on the sidewalk in the cold. Clara found me in the crowd. Is everyone out? I asked. I think so. Mrs. Rodriguez is doing a head count. A fire captain approached us. Ma'am, are you the building manager? Yes. We've got a major gas leak. Looks like someone deliberately damaged the main line. This building's not safe. Nobody goes back in until we can shut off the gas and assess the damage. How long will that take? Could be days, maybe weeks. I looked around at my tenants, families with children, elderly people, young couples, all standing in the street with nowhere to go. Ray had won. He'd found a way to empty the building without technically evicting anyone. My phone buzzed. Text from Ray. Told you I'd handle the problem. Hope everyone finds somewhere warm to sleep tonight. I showed the message to the police officer taking my statement. We'll add it to the report, he said. But unless we can prove he damaged the gas line, I can prove it, I said. I pulled out Amy's envelope and handed him the recordings. What's this? Evidence that he planned this. All of it. The officer's expression changed as he scanned the documents. Ma'am, you need to come with me. We're going to need a full statement. As they led me toward the police car, I looked back at my building. Smoke was pouring from the utility room windows. Fire crews were setting up equipment. Everything I'd built was gone. But Ray had made one final mistake. He'd left evidence, and now I had witnesses, recordings, and a paper trail that would destroy him. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. The police station at 3 a.m. was fluorescent bright and smelled like burnt coffee. Detective Martinez spread Amy's documents across the interview table while I gave my statement for the third time. So, your ex-husband bought your family's building specifically to force you and the tenants out? Yes. And you believe he deliberately damaged the gas line to make the building uninhabitable? I know he did. It's all in those recordings. Martinez picked up one of the transcripts. These conversations mention creating an emergency situation, but don't specifically reference gas lines. He said he'd handled me before and could handle me again. Then he showed up at my building, and 20 minutes later, there's a gas leak that forces everyone out. That's not a coincidence. We'll investigate, but... The door opened. Another detective entered, looking grim. Martinez, we got a problem. The building owner's lawyer is here. Says his client's being framed. My stomach dropped. Ray's here? Downstairs with a team of attorneys. Claims he was at a business dinner when the gas leak happened. Has witnesses. Of course he does. Martinez closed the file. Ms. Fox, we're going to need more time to verify these recordings and documents. In the meantime, 23 families are homeless because he destroyed their building. We'll do everything we can. I left the station at dawn. Outside, Phoebe was waiting in her car. How'd it go? He's got alibis, lawyers, the whole thing. What about Amy's evidence? They're investigating, which means Ray's lawyers are probably already working to discredit it. Phoebe started the engine. There's something you should see. She handed me her phone. The morning news was running a story about the gas leak. But the headline made my blood boil. Disgruntled ex-wife suspected in building sabotage. What the hell? Ray's people got to the media first. They're saying you damaged the gas line yourself to frame him. I scrolled through the article. Anonymous sources claiming I'd been unstable since the divorce. Quotes from family members saying I'd threatened revenge. Marley, I said. She gave them quotes. It gets worse. Check social media. Marley had posted a long Facebook rant about how I'd finally snapped and endangered innocent people. The comments were brutal. Friends and extended family members I hadn't spoken to in years, all piling on. Always knew she was unhinged. Poor Ray, having to deal with this psycho. Someone should have gotten her help years ago. My phone rang. Mom. Sophia, what have you done? I didn't do anything, Mom. The news is saying you sabotaged the building, that you put people in danger. Ray sabotaged the building. I have proof. Ray was at dinner with investors. There are witnesses. He hired someone to do it. Sophia, honey, I think you need help. professional help. I need my family to believe me. We want to believe you, but Ray's paying you millions of dollars, so you'll believe whatever keeps the money coming. Silence. That's not fair, she said finally. Neither is calling your daughter a liar to protect the man who put her in the hospital. I hung up. Phoebe drove me to the hotel, where the Red Cross had set up emergency housing for the displaced tenants. The lobby was full of my people. Families with suitcases and garbage bags, kids crying, elderly residents looking lost and confused. Clara spotted me first. Sophia, thank God, we've been so worried. Are you all okay? Does everyone have a place to stay? For now. But they're saying it could be weeks before we can go back. Mrs. Rodriguez approached with tears in her eyes. Mija, they're saying on the news that you... I didn't do it, Mrs. Rodriguez. I would never hurt any of you. I know that. We all know that. Dante joined us. Sophia, what can we do? How do we fight this? Before I could answer, hotel security approached. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Why? We've received complaints. Some of the other guests are concerned about your presence. Concerned about what? There are allegations that you're responsible for the building damage. The hotel can't risk... She's not responsible for anything, Clara said firmly. She's the one who protected us. I'm sorry, but hotel policy... It's okay, I said. I'll go. Outside, Phoebe was on her phone with her editor. They're pulling the story, she said when she hung up. Ray's lawyers sent a cease and desist, threatened to sue for libel. Can they do that? They can try. My editor's scared. Says we need more corroboration before we can run anything. What about Amy's evidence? Amy's disappeared. Her apartment's empty. Her phone's disconnected. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Check your email. Final gift. Use it wisely. I opened my email. One new message with a video attachment. The video was security footage from Ray's office building. Timestamp showed yesterday evening, right around the time of the gas leak. Ray was clearly visible entering the building with another man, someone I didn't recognize. But the timestamp was wrong. The video showed them arriving at 7:30 p.m. The gas leak happened at 9:45 p.m. I showed Phoebe. This proves he wasn't at dinner when he claimed to be. But it doesn't prove he was at your building. No, but it proves he lied about his alibi. My phone rang. Detective Martinez. Ms. Fox, we've completed our preliminary investigation. The gas leak appears to have been caused by equipment failure, not sabotage. That's impossible. The utility company found metal fatigue in the main line. Probably been developing for months. Someone tampered with it. There's no evidence of tampering. I'm sorry, but we're closing the case. What about the recordings? The financial documents? We'll continue investigating the fraud allegations, but the building incident appears to be accidental. I hung up and stared at Phoebe. They bought off the investigators, too. Or Ray's just that good at covering his tracks. That evening, I sat in my car outside my parents' house, watching through the living room window. Ray was there, sitting in Dad's chair like he belonged. Mom was serving coffee. They were all laughing about something. My phone rang. Ray. Enjoying the show? I looked up. He was standing at the window, phone to his ear, smiling and waving. You destroyed everything, I said. I won. There's a difference. Those people are homeless because of you. Those people are homeless because you tried to play games with someone smarter than you. The truth will come out. What truth? That a bitter ex-wife tried to frame her successful ex-husband? That she endangered innocent people in her quest for revenge? He chuckled. That's the only truth anyone will remember. Through the window, I could see my parents nodding along to whatever he was saying. They'll never believe you over me, Sophia. I'm rich. I'm respectable. I'm the victim here. We'll see about that. No, we won't. Because you're done, finished. No one will rent to you now. No one will hire you. No one will believe anything you say. He was right, and we both knew it. But hey, he continued, I'm not completely heartless. I'll make you the same offer I made your parents. Disappear quietly, and I'll make sure you're comfortable. Keep fighting, and I'll destroy what's left of your life. Go to hell. Been there. It's not so bad once you learn to enjoy the heat. The line went dead. I sat in my car for another hour, watching my family celebrate with the man who'd ruined my life. Then I started the engine and drove away. But I wasn't running. I was planning. Because Ray had made one final mistake. He'd underestimated how far I was willing to go. The federal agents arrived at Ray's office on a Tuesday morning. I watched from across the street as they carried out boxes of documents, computers, and files. The local news crews were already setting up. My phone rang. Phoebe, did you see? I'm watching it happen. How did you know they'd be here today? Because I called them yesterday. 3 weeks had passed since the gas leak. 3 weeks of Ray thinking he'd won. 3 weeks of me letting him believe it while I put together the real evidence. Amy's documents had been helpful, but they weren't enough. What I needed was something that couldn't be dismissed or discredited. So I'd gone to the source. Sophia, Phoebe said, what did you do? I did what I should have done from the beginning. I stopped playing defense. The story started with Ray's business partner, Marcus, the nervous lawyer who'd been with him that first day at the building. Turns out Marcus had been skimming money from their real estate deals for months. When I approached him with Amy's financial records, he realized Ray knew about the theft and was planning to frame him for the whole operation. Marcus flipped faster than a pancake on Sunday morning. He gave the FBI everything: bank records, shell company documents, recorded conversations, bribery receipts, 5 years of criminal activity across 4 states. But the beautiful part wasn't just Ray going down. The beautiful part was that my parents were listed as co-conspirators. Turn on Channel 7, I told Phoebe. The news anchor was reading from a prepared statement. Federal agents have arrested real estate developer Ray Blake on charges of fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy. Also arrested were Hugh and Evelyn Fox, who allegedly helped launder money through the sale of their apartment building. My phone started ringing immediately. First, Marley. Sophia, what the hell is happening? Mom and Dad were just arrested. I know. Did you do this? I gave the FBI evidence of their crimes. What they did with it was their choice. They're our parents. They chose Ray over their own daughter. They chose money over family. Now they get to live with the consequences. You vindictive bitch. You destroyed our family. No, Marley, they destroyed our family. I just made sure there were consequences. She hung up. Next call was from Dad's lawyer. Ms. Fox, your parents would like to speak with you. I'm sure they would. They're willing to cooperate with authorities if you'll ask the FBI to consider a plea arrangement. What makes you think I have any influence with the FBI? You're the whistleblower. Your testimony will be crucial to their case. Then they should have thought about that before they sold my home to my abuser. I hung up. The third call was from Clara. Sophia, dear, are you watching the news? Every minute of it. The reporter says the building sale is being investigated as part of a money laundering scheme. That's right. What does that mean for us? For the building? It means the sale was illegal. It means you can all go home. Silence. Then, home? The FBI is seizing all of Ray's assets, including the building. But since the sale was fraudulent, ownership reverts to the original sellers, my parents. And since they're going to prison, they'll need someone to manage the property. Someone like you? Someone exactly like me. That evening, I stood in the lobby of my building. The gas had been repaired, the utilities restored, the damage fixed. Paxton was changing light bulbs while Mrs. Rodriguez swept the floors. Feels good to be back, Paxton said. Feels like justice, Mrs. Rodriguez added. Dante came down the stairs carrying boxes. Sophia, I can't thank you enough. When they said we might never get to come home, this is your home. It always was. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Saw the news. Well played. A friend. I smiled and deleted the message. Clara appeared in the doorway, carrying a bottle of champagne and a stack of plastic cups. I thought we should celebrate, she said. Celebrate what? Justice, family, home. She started pouring champagne. The things that matter. As word spread through the building, more tenants appeared. Soon the lobby was full of people toasting and laughing and sharing stories about the past few weeks. Speech, someone called out. No speeches, I said. Just, welcome home, everyone. My phone rang one more time. Ray calling from jail. I almost didn't answer. What do you want? You think you've won? He said. His voice was different now, smaller, defeated. I know I've won. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You're going to prison for a very long time. My parents are going to prison. Your business is destroyed, your assets seized, your reputation ruined. I'll appeal. I'll fight this. With what money? With what lawyers? Everything you had was built on fraud, Ray. It's all gone. Silence. You want to know the best part? I continued. I didn't have to become like you to beat you. I didn't have to hurt innocent people or break the law or destroy families. I just had to tell the truth. The truth, he said bitterly. The truth. That you're a criminal who preys on vulnerable people. That you use money and intimidation to get what you want. That you're exactly the kind of person who belongs in a cage. Sophia? Don't. We're done. We've been done for 6 years. The only difference is now everyone else knows what kind of man you really are. I hung up and turned off my phone. Around me, my real family was celebrating. Clara was telling stories about the old days. Paxton was making plans for building improvements. Mrs. Rodriguez was already organizing a welcome-back potluck dinner. These people had stood by me when my blood family wouldn't. They'd trusted me when everyone else believed the lies. They'd fought alongside me when it would have been easier to give up. Sophia, Clara said, appearing at my elbow with a fresh cup of champagne. Any regrets? I looked around the lobby, at the community I'd built, the home I'd saved, the family I'd chosen. Just one, I said. What's that? I should have done this sooner. Clara smiled and raised her cup. To karma. To karma, I agreed. We clinked glasses, and I took a sip of champagne that tasted like victory. In the end, karma doesn't ask permission. It just collects. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get to watch.